I really don't want students to be like focused more on the testing part. That's the things now. If you do terrible in quiz number one, let's tell you this: if you do terrible in quiz one, but you aced quiz 2, 3, and 4, and tests are well, I'm not going to punish you for one quiz. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you do a quiz, 3 quizzes well, you do tests well, I see your article analysis is good, I'm not going to take points because you did bad in the first quiz. I'm not going to do that. So you have, don't worry about it. But just my goal is I want you to study and learn a few things from this. And also I really want you to, because I will post some discussion questions. That's where you get your class participation. It will be from the other book. That's where current issues, the things that we're struggling with as society today. I want you to go look. There is a website. This guy discusses a few issues every day, and he you can go to the website that I posted in. You can listen to his discussion. Sometimes you just listen in your way to somewhere where you're staying. Just listen to that discussion he has with this professor of economics. That's a really good, I think, discussions as well, because this will bring all this together. When you study this class, look at the other perspective. I promise you will have you will learn something. That's my goal in this class. So let's see if there are any other. No, good. So let's keep going. So in economics, there are 2 very important branches that you can study. Either like what you are taking today is macroeconomics 201. There is another class which is micro, which is 202. This we're gonna see these 2 different branches of economics. Okay, the first one, it's this microeconomics is concerned with specific economic units. It means we have to talk about specific stuff. We talk about person. We talk about a product. We talk about firm, one thing. So we are not going to talk about broad stuff. We're talking about one unit in the business. Either you're talking about one consumer, or you talk about the price of a good, or you talk about the car industry, for example, or shoes industry. Are we going to talk about specifics? That's microeconomics. Okay. So the decision making or undertaken by individuals or household or firm. That's what is microeconomics. So you're talking about a person, family, household, talking about a business, one firms. We're not talking about the whole. So for example, we talk about the price of gasoline. That's microeconomics analysis. Your family decision to have a baby. That's talking about the unit, one unit. We're talking about a business or a firm trying to advertise or not. So for example, talking about BMW trying to move their plant to North Carolina, for example, or going to China. That's a business unit. That's a microeconomics. What we're going to study in this class, it's macroeconomics deals with the economy as a whole. We're not going to talk about one specific thing, or we are talking about the group. We should talk about the country as a whole, for example. We're not going to talk about the price of one product. We're going to talk about the product of the price of everything we produce, for example, or everything we consume. So if somebody has a question? No. Practice questions, it's for you to help you practice. Okay? You do not have to submit anything. I just want you to go through it. And if you have any questions, when we start next class, I'm not going to open the questions and go through all of them, but I will just answer specific questions. Say, I did this question, I don't understand it. Why is this answer is wrong? Why is this answer is correct? Something like that. But you don't have to submit anything. I'm going to post the answers. You try the practices, look at the answers. I can post the answers. If you don't want to do them, you just wait till I submit the answers and you go through the answers. It's up to you. I'm not going to hold you responsible for anything. But it's very helpful if next class we'll come back and say, okay, these questions that we don't understand, question number 10 or question number 19, each one will have a couple of questions to ask if you did it correctly. Okay. So yes, let's go back. So if you have questions at the end, I will have 10 minutes, then you can ask me questions. Now I can just keep going. So we have to. So we're going to study in this class. We're not going to talk about specific product, specific prices. At the end, we can just have to understand how the economy as a whole behave. Okay. So that's the idea behind the economy 201. Okay. That's what we're going to study. So the study of the behavior of the economy as a whole. We can understand the unemployment rate for the country as a whole, the prices of the price of goods and services we buy or we produce as a whole, not one specific thing. How much we produce. We're not going to talk about how much GM produces, or how much is the price of the car of GM or Ford, or how much people that works at the GM plant get paid. No, we're going to talk about the unemployment rate, how many people are working, how many people are not working in a country. What happens to the prices in a country? Is it going up or going down? The whole. We are not going to talk about specific. How much we produce a year or a month. That's macroeconomic level. That's a bigger behavior. So think about this. It's like looking at the tree or a forest. When you're looking at the whole forest, it's macroeconomics. If you're looking at each tree, it's micro. It's a very specific. So macro, it means the bigger picture. Micro, it's the small specific. In real business world, you have to understand some concept of this branch of the economy, and then in your decision making as a business person, you have to understand how the prices will affect your company, or as a person or as a family, you want to understand that. But before you get there, you have to understand that the economy whole as a whole. What is going on? Is the economy doing well or is not doing well? And these indicators, we call them indicators, tells us the health of the economy. If less people, if you have high unemployment, it means the economy is not doing well. If the unemployment rate is going down, it means the economy is doing better. So what happened to the prices? That's cost of living. If the prices are going up, means the money you have will not be enough for you to buy the same thing. So if you have $100 and the prices are going up, so you will not buy the same amount of stuff. So that's how you understand inflation. And how much we produce, because how much we produce will explain unemployment rate. So all let's call them economic indicators will help us understand the health of the economy. That's we will start talking about that in chapter 7 and 8. We'll explain each one separately. So chapter 7, we'll talk about unemployment rate and inflation. And chapter 8, we're going to talk about how the output is measured and how does help the economy grow, solve the problem of unemployment. Okay, so that's very important question. So look at this. This is a table that divides. So in each branch of the economy, we're going to talk about production, price, income, and employment. But the problem is that how we look at each category. So, for example, in microeconomics, we're going to talk about specific things. So for example, how much steel we produce, office spaces, how many cars, shoes. That's production for each business unit. And the price of individual stuff, which are price of healthcare, for example, price of gas, price of food, apartment, and we're talking about specific things, iPhone, Samsung. And then we talk about income distribution in each industry, for example. We can do that, minimum wage in industry. So that's a specific stuff. How many people are working in specific company or specific industry. But in macro level, it's national production, how much we produce altogether. It's called gross domestic product. How much we produce, it's very important, because if we produce more, means we are hiring more people. Do you remember that? That's why we economic growth means we produce more. The price level, we're going to look how much it costs us to buy stuff, the things we consume. Not one thing, the basket of goods. When you go to the market and you buy a basket of goods, has shoes in it, has a t-shirt in it, has a milk in it, has yogurt in it, has bread in it. So we want to know what happened to the cost of that basket. The things we like, what happened to the price of oil we use to produce goods and services. That's how we call it, like the price level or a rate of inflation or a rate of deflation. Wages and salaries, we're going to calculate in the total how much people that work in US make as wages. Profit, the total profit. We're not going to talk about the profit of one company. We're going to talk about the profit altogether in US for companies. With salaries, for example, that's a very broad definition. It's not one group of people. And then we will talk about unemployment, number of people, job created, and a rate of unemployment. We are talking about rate of unemployment for a country like France, Canada, Spain, Japan. How many people, labor force participation. But we're going to talk first, just remember, all this stuff, the very important is the process of calculating all this stuff. Numbers are a little bit very important, but the more important is that you have to know you might have a different process for each country. And we will see what is the weaknesses. Even if you have these prices, there is a little bit problem with all this stuff. You have to understand the issues with all these things. But at the end, you have to be able to identify what is gross domestic product, what is included in the gross domestic product, and what is not included. So if I'm trying to measure and give you an example that you see, so I'm giving you an example. You make sandwich at home or you buy it. That's two different animals. One is counted, one is not counted. You have to remember that. When we're trying, when we're trying to measure how much we produce, there are a lot of things we do at home is not counted in our national product, how much we produce. Because one, we know the price, one, we don't know. When you buy something, you know how much it costs and the price of it. When you make it at home, we don't know. You babysit for yourself versus you hire babysitter. That's comes to wages. Is one is included, one is not included. We know how much you pay the babysitter, but we don't know how much you will cost you to hire you to be a babysitter. So we will see this is very important distinction. You buy a car that is produced 2010, but is not produced today. We will not going to include it in the calculations. Okay, so there are a lot of things that are illegal that are not included in the calculations. You do something that is illegal, it means it's not even if it's value creation, it doesn't, it's not because it's illegal. Okay, you can see how much, for example, in the old days, marijuana was not legal, so it was not part of GDP. Now, because it's legal, we can include it in the calculations. You will see how that affected our GDP. A lot of people are working under the table. We're not calculated. There is a definition of what it means to be unemployed. In the US, is not even if you don't have a job, it does not mean unemployed. There is a specific definition to be unemployed. The first thing is that you have to be looking for a job. So in US, if you're not looking for a job, you are not considered, even if you don't have a job. You don't have a job, it does not mean you are unemployed. You have to be looking. We're going to talk about that in chapter 7, but I just want to see there are a lot of things you have to learn. It's not easy. So there is a process that we're going to learn, and that gives you an idea how this is measured. But just you have to remember the division of economics, there are two parts of all this thing. Okay? So we go back to the basic things that we started with. The economic problem, if somebody says, what is the economic problem? You will see this a lot, is that the problem we have, the reason we have economic in the first place is that we have to deal with this issue, limited resources and unlimited ones. That's we call it economic problem. So the people are facing this dilemma. You have limited resources and we have unlimited ones. In economic, we call it, the problem is scarcity. We're going to talk about scarcity in chapter 2. But that's what scarcity means. When something is scarce, that's what it means. You have limited of it, and we have a lot of people want it. That's it's a product that is scarce. And the economy, we study only things that are scarce. Economic problem is that societies, people, countries face a scarcity problem. What does that mean? Means if somebody says scarcity, this means limited resources and unlimited ones. Means demand for something is higher, is bigger than, greater than supply. More people, like if it's free, that's how you know something is scarce. If we say, imagine this thing is free, what do you think will happen? Imagine if iPhones are free. Will you think we'll have enough? No. Imagine if that's scarce. Not all the products are scarce. There are a lot of things that are not a lot of things that they can think about things that it's zero price. You don't pay nothing for it because it's not scarce. And one is air that you breathe. It's very important. It's useful, but is not an economic problem because you have plenty for everyone. You can breathe as much as you want, but you will not charge you anything for it. So now we have, because of the scarcity, because of the society, individuals, people, everybody, we have to answer these 3 basic questions in economics. Economics is based on these 3 questions, and we see what are. So remember, scarcity means infinite wants with finite scarce resources. Means the supply of this good is less than how much we want. That's a problem. That's a scarcity issue. Okay? So now, how we solve this economic problem, we have to ask these 3 questions. The first thing is what to produce. If we have limited resources, we cannot produce everything, then we have to make choices. We have to decide what to produce. The second question is how to produce this and who gets the product. So you will start from the scarcity issues. That's the economic problem. Then you come up to these 3 questions. Every time you are trying to do something, you'll say, I want to start a business. what do you have to do? That's the question. The first things you ask yourself, what am I going to produce? What am I going to sell to people? The second question is that, how can I produce this? Because how you produce this product determines the price of it. When you decide the price, will determine who gets the product. So should I use a lot of people? Like, there are different ways you can think about this. So let's say I want to produce a product X. Well, how do I determine that X product that I should produce? I'm not just going randomly and go and say, okay, I'm going to produce shoes. No, I have to think what people want. There is a need or wants for something. Say, I see people need this thing. So if I produce it, means I know there is a people that will buy this product. Every time you answer these questions, you have to remember, we are saying you have to a value proposition. What value I am going to create for people so they can buy from me? That's the first step. Second step is that, how can I produce this? Should I have machines produce this, or I have more labor, or I can outsource it to China and they'll produce it in China? That's a question, because when you decide these answers, that will give you, when you decide how you're going to produce this, will determine the price. Then the price will say who is going to get this product based on the income. So iPhone is costing $1,000. There is a group of people who buy iPhone at 1,000. If you charge 2,000, there is a different group of people who is going to buy this product. If you charge 500, so when you answer this question, you can automatically determine who is going to get the product. So it is, all these questions are linked together. First, what am I going to produce? Means I have to have, I have something to solve, a problem to solve, or pleasure. So every time you decide the product that, or a business idea, you have to think about two things. That is very important. First one is, there is a problem that I'm going to solve. My product will solve problem. That's a business idea. Okay. If I see there is a problem, that's how smart people come up with ideas. Every time you are facing a problem, you think, does this problem exist for everyone else, everybody else, or just me? If you know there's a lot of people that have the same issue, means you have to produce a solution for them. Okay. Or there is a solution already existed, but it's not a good solution. And a good example I gave you before. So in the old days, people go from Boston to New York using horses. There is a solution, but it's not efficient. That's why somebody thought about coming up with the idea of having a car, because it gets you faster. In the old days, people go from Europe to US using a boat. Somebody thought about, oh, that's a solution, but it's not a good solution. I can come up with an airplane. I can fly from Europe to US. But sometimes there is no solution, and somebody like a drug. So you have a cancer, for example, say no solution for this disease. And like today, for example, we have COVID-19, and we don't have, somebody has to come up with solution. If you come up with solution, you have people will buy your product. So now the next thing is that you have, what resources I have to use to produce this. Depends on what situation you are in. There is sometimes a product you have to have two. So there is a piece that are missing for, let's say, why iPhone is $1,000? Because the things they use to produce this iPhone is expensive. There are pieces that you can make in plastic or make it in gold, for example, or silver. If you use plastic, it may be cheaper. This is how you decide to produce it. But if you put a different piece, which has same use, but it's made in gold or silver, that determines a different price. Now, people that buy a product, it's not just randomly they go and buy. The people who buy iPhone is because they have high income. They can afford the price. And the other people go buy Nokia because it's cheaper. Okay, so that's very important questions. Just remember, this is 3 important questions that always you have to ask yourself. If you cannot answer these 3 questions, you have no business doing that. That's the starting point. What I'm going to do, I want to do business. What I'm going to do, how do I? It's not me. I'm not going to determine the need or the wants of people. What people wants, that determines what I'm going to produce. You're not going to produce now something that nobody will buy. So that's very important. If you have enough people that will buy the product, Yeah, okay, I have a business idea. Now I have to think. Now I have different options I can produce. Let me give you an example. For example, BMW in the old days, they only produce cars in Germany. They don't produce them anywhere else. Okay, they just like produce it in Germany, ship it to other countries. But the problem is that, okay, it was too expensive for them. They figured out, can we produce cars in other countries? And they have to come up with solution. Is it yes? Is it worth it or not? And they run to two problems. So Germans are, BMW is known for quality car. BMW, very good car. So the questions they say, okay, if we move to the US, we might have not good quality cars because they think German engineers are the best. They do a good job. If we bring it to the US, then you might not have a quality car. And we don't want to mess up with our brands. Our brands is quality. And they have to, the management has to make that decision. So how to produce it was a big question. At the end, they decided to move to South Carolina or North Carolina or where they have their plants. But it's a big risk. So now they are close to the customers in US, and then they can reduce a little bit the price, and or they will make more profit. That's how business decisions are made. And every day, business they have to go through this process to figure out what to do. So first, we're facing scarcity. We have to be efficient in allocating our resources. We have to get the best outcome we can. Okay. So if we get more, we might reduce the price in how to produce it, and then we will have more people buying the product. And then we produce more means we are having more economic growth. We produce more, it's good for everybody else. But you have to be efficient, is very important. So we have limited resources. If you decide to produce one product, you will not be able to produce another product. You don't have a limit. You have one plant or two plants. You have a number of cars. You can Ford, for example, has to produce either the car 150, F-150, or Sudan, the other cars. So they have to choose how much quantity of each car brand they have to produce. That's what to produce. So, and this is a very important things that you have to keep in mind. So we're talking about producing goods as businesses. We have two things that go in opposite directions, and that's what makes the economy work. So we have two groups. I'm going to add a slide here so you can explain to you guys what I'm talking about. So in economics, there are two things that makes the business, the economy works. So we have people who produces, which is businesses, okay, and you have consumers. They have conflict of interest. Businesses, they want to make maximum profit. The consumers, they want to be as happy as possible, maximizing happiness. In economy, we call it utility. Okay. So the company if they can charge you $1 zillion, they will charge you. Why they don't do that? Apple will love to sell their iPhone for 2,000, but the problem is that the people will not buy it because you, as a consumer, you are smart. You are trying to bring it down. The cheaper the things, the happier you are. So how many times you will go and just look at the product in the windows, and then you see, oh, I like this, and then when you find out price is low, you are happier. The lower the price is, the happier you are. So your goal is trying to lower the price. Why? Because your constraint is your budget. You have what's called budget constraint. You have limited money. You want to buy a lot of stuff. The way I can buy a lot of stuff is trying to lower the price of everything. The companies in the other side, they want to maximize the profit. The way they can maximize the profit is that increasing the price. So the problem is that they can, but the problem if they increase the price, people will not buy it. So that's where Adam Smith called it the invisible hand. The system work just because of this very important idea. Everybody is looking for their self-interest. Everybody is fighting. So at the end, the system works because of that. So how many times you wake up in the morning or you go to the market, you're trying to buy the milk? Did you ask yourself, I don't know if we have milk in the stores today or not? You know there is milk. Why? Because this mechanism of companies are trying to buy to make profit. They bring the product to the market. You as a person, you will buy the product because you want it, you need it. And everything is working together without having somebody in the top telling you what to do. Nobody tells the person in the store, oh, you have to have a milk today. No, he knows the motivation for him makes the system work. So one is motivated by profit maximization, profit. The other person is utility, means you want to be as happy as possible. And the interaction between these two determines the price. A company looks at the profit, keeping in mind that how much people are willing to pay. You also want to be as happy as possible, keeping in mind that the company also has to make profit. And the system works. It's amazing. It looks obvious. It looks, but imagine the guy who thought about this in 1776 says there is we don't have to, it's not your job to make the society works. You don't have to tell people what to do. Just let them, each person look for their self-interest. At the end, the system works like there is a hand behind all this group of people, like make them move around. Nobody will tell you go buy milk or not to buy the milk. Nobody is forcing you to drive a car, not to drive a car. But because of you looking for your self-interest, you're doing that. And the same things for businesses. They bring the product to the market because they can make profit. If they don't make profit, nobody will sell that product. If nobody wants the product, so we have to interact with these people in the marketplace. Imagine you go to the market, you buy stuff, and the price is determined based on this stuff. It's amazing. It is not something easy to think about. The market. What is a market? Just a market. Like you buy stuff from somebody you don't even know. Do you know who makes that bottle of milk? Do you know where this milk came from? You have no clue. You just go and you never thought about it. Oh, the milk is made in Vermont or is made in California. I just care that it is milk. I need milk. I just go buy the milk. The company also knows that somebody in Boston will buy the milk. They will bring the company. It's a system in place. Okay, so now when you're trying to answer these three questions, remember the questions are very important. What to produce? How do we determine that? It's based on what people want. How to produce it is a company's decision. They want to, like, if it depends what the company, like, that's business strategy. So the company decide what to produce. This is called business strategy. You have a business strategy, okay? What is business strategy? You want to define who is going to buy your product. How can you attract people? There are two ways. You are looking for price. People are motivated by price or motivated by quality. There are some people just looking for cheap stuff. Are you Walmart? Target people who are interested in cheap stuff. There is a company that, oh no, it's not about the price. I just want to give them a really good product. A BMW, Apple. The brand name is very important. So here they will always think about making their product very good. That's their business strategy. They are targeting people who are willing to pay a little bit more, but they want to have a good product. Walmart, they sell things cheaper, the lower price. People who go to buy a bar of soup for 50 cents or $1 or something like that. So that's Amazon. So even here's what happened. They make a little profit for each because a profit is equal to price minus cost. They can make small profit, but they will sell millions of bars of soup. They don't care. That's how Walmart works. This is how Amazon works. They can make a little bit profit from each unit, but they sell quantity. They will just produce as much as possible. They sell as much as possible. These companies, they don't have to sell a lot, but they can make a margin. The price and the cost. The iPhone, it costs to produce $300. And they sell it for 900 or 600. It means the margin here is 400. They don't have to sell a lot to make a lot of profit. But the one thing they are betting on is their quality. The quality. BMW, you will never see a BMW break down on the highway. They will be sure. And their advertising, look at their advertising. The best engine invented. That's how they will present themselves. They will say, this is a good quality car. This is luxury car, not like any sedan or something like that. So if somebody, BMW, the first thing that comes to your mind is quality. A Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donut. That's two different strategies. The people who go to Starbucks is not the same that people go to Dunkin' Donut. Starbucks, you pay a little bit extra. Coffee costs $5 at Starbucks. Not for me. Promise you that. So I go to Dunkin' Donut. The people look like me, go to Dunkin' Donut. You go to Starbucks, because Starbucks is, here is one thing. The Starbucks is not selling you coffee. Their business is not about coffee. Coffee is just part of it. They are selling you the place. They want you, they say there is a house, this is your home, there is work, and there is Starbucks. It can be at home, or it can be at work, or it can be at Starbucks. Means they have to have all this cultural or environment that like attract people who are looking for a place to do work, have a coffee. You are not buying just a coffee. When you go to Starbucks, you are buying the place to sit, environment, the people that serves you. That's how they build their strategy. Dunkin' Donut, they know you just come to have a dark black coffee or whatever coffee you drink. So they will have a lower price. They attract different kind of people. If you look at the neighborhoods where Starbucks is, not where Dunkin', you're never, really rare to see Dunkin' Donut near Starbucks, unless if you drive through a gas station, or I mean a highway or something. I don't know. I never saw, personally, from my experience, if I see Dunkin' Donut, means there are no Starbucks. If I see Starbucks, first, the rent is expensive where Starbucks is. There'll be like high-end neighborhoods. Dunkin' Donut in lower-end neighborhoods. The environment in Dunkin' Donut, when you get there, is not a place you can sit. You go to Starbucks, you see chairs are comfortable, like the family, like environment and stuff like that. So, and that's two different business strategies. You want to see what I'm going to sell. Sometimes it's not just the product itself. You're selling a brand. When you're buying this is amazing about the consumers too. When you buy something, it's not just you buy a shirt or you wear sneakers. It's not just because you need sneakers. You are trying to make a statement. You want to show people, like you buy a t-shirt has like some statements in it. You want to say to people, here, you want to be accepted. You want to belong to a group of people. That's emotional decision. That's what you are buying. It's not just the product itself. You have to think about people that people emotionally, they are attached to products. Now, we go back to the three questions. When we answer these questions, we define what is called economic system. So each society has their, how they decide all this. The answer of these three questions determine their society, the system of the society. You go back in the history, you look at different, before we get to capitalism, there is a different way of answering these questions. Today, the way we answer these questions is not the same we did a long time. The way we answer questions today in the US is not the same in some other countries. So the way we decide to answer these questions determines our economic system. So when you see somebody is a free market system versus communism or something, just the way the questions are answered determine the system. So, okay, to solve this basic economic problem, which is scarcity, we have the issues. The society must answer all these basic questions, okay? And each society answers the questions in different ways. So we look at the economic goals and we make decisions. And the way we answer these economic questions is based on our values. What is our values? What we value? That's very important. So this is the way it works. You have economic problem, which is limited resources, and you have unlimited ones. Then you have to answer these questions, three questions: what to produce, how to produce. The way you answer these questions determine the economic system. And the economic system is based on what you value. Some people think it's fine to have rich people. It's okay if somebody work hard, come up with new idea and make billions like US, it's fine. You have the guy who owns Amazon is worth zillion money. The guy who come up with the idea of Facebook, Apple guy, it's okay. Well, that's what we value. We value innovation. We value entrepreneurship. We want people to succeed. Some countries, they say, no, we don't want that. So the mechanism that we use to solve these questions determines our economic system. So just remember, the economic system is an organized way in which a country allocates limited resources and distributes goods and services across the nation. That's the summary of the answers for the three questions. You have a lot of things included in all this stuff. You are trying to buy a product. Is not only you go to you need a place where you can buy it. That's the first thing. You need the consumers. You need the people who selling the product. You need the method of payment. You need the government that organizes all this stuff. So that's whole decision-making process. It's not just like you go and grab the milk and that's all of it. Imagine you have to pay with your credit card. Well, who is going to process all that stuff? You pay with the money, where this money came from. So it's printed somewhere else. So All this stuff, it's called the economic system, but it reflects our values. That's more important. You will see there are different systems in the world. There are three different systems. There are three different ways you can answer these questions. So, so look at this. That's how the system. We have people all working, manufacturing stuff. We have government regulations. We have land. We have capital, and all this stuff to produce goods and services. Then we have to distribute all this stuff for consumers. It's a very complex system. It looks simple. It's because of this, it's called invisible hand, because of people are looking for profit, they produce stuff, and people are trying to be happy and they consume it. And it looks simple, but it's behind all this stuff. You have to pay wages for somebody. You have to rent a truck. You have to have a piece of land to build your plant. You have to have a place where you can distribute your goods and services. And so that you be able to buy this product at the grocery store. Just think about the milk. How many people are involved so you can have milk in your neighborhood? It is not easy. But because of this thing that I say, that there are two things that are motivating us, profit and satisfactions, makes all this stuff work. So there are two opposite answers for these questions, and actually there are three, but the third one is the combination. We'll talk about that. So there is what is called centralized command control system, which is called the plan system. It means we have one person or one entity makes decision to answer all the three questions. Say all communism, like in all the Soviet Union, the government decides what to produce, how to produce it, who gets the product. You cannot just go to the store and buy how much you want of meat. That's not how it works. The government gives you a voucher. Say you are allowed only to buy 1 pound of milk or 1 pound of meat every week. So you have this piece of paper, a voucher. The companies at the end of every year, they have a plan and say we have to produce this much of cars, this much of phones, for example. That's, we have what's called command control system. Centralized group of people, one person in the top, or a group of people could be, decides all the three questions. Question one, question two, question three. That's called, and that's, we have some countries like that. It's like North Korea, you have like Cuba today, is the same thing. But we have what is called the free market system. The market decides everything. We don't tell people. The signal comes from the market, will tell us what we need to produce. If we have more people want iPhone, we can produce more iPhone. If more people want cars, we can produce more cars. It's the market system that decides. The price will tell us what to produce, how to produce it, and who gets the product. The only signal we have is a price. That's it. You have people, they interact, which is producers and consumers looking for their self-interest. They interact in the market. They will determine the price of the product. And based on the price, we'll see how we can answer this question. If somebody is willing to pay for a product, if we have a group of people willing to pay for a product, we're going to produce it. If nobody is willing to pay the price, nobody will produce it. You cannot produce a product nobody want to buy. So I'll give you an example. Today, many of people want to go to the moon. Why we are not sending people to the moon? Because nobody is willing to pay the price. It's too expensive. If we get to the point where the price will get lower with technology and it's faster to go to the moon, we will have shuttle buses or shuttle airplanes that goes from here to the moon. Today, because of this price system, if you have like what is his name, Elon Musk trying to do with his space agency, trying to figure out how to make it cheaper, that's a signal. Make it cheaper that people can go to the moon. If he can get there, where people willing to pay, he will do it. If he cannot, that's it. That's the end. That's how this system. Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody, like the government or any agency, will tell you you produce more of this or less of this. Versus this system here, where we have a group of people are deciding what to do. Now, the system we have. So remember, this is a centralized command control system. So what to produce is determined by the government or one person, like dictator or something. He says we can produce, and then the government decides how many employees we'll have, who is going to produce all this stuff. We will decide how to produce all these things, and who gets this is based on the government decisions. that will tell you based on how much we produce. We know how many people we have in our country. We can see how much each person gets as a share of his consumption. So we will produce this much amount of meat. We have this number of people. We divide it. You have 1.5 pounds every week. You get a voucher for that. You cannot buy anything without a voucher. When you go to the butcher, you will give him, I want to buy meat. He will say, give me the voucher so I can see how much you are allowed to buy. You can just buy whatever you want. So you can see there is no freedom of choice. Choices are not there. And that's what makes the market system very good. Very good is that what to produce determined by the consumer's preference, what people want. Nobody will tell you to, if people want to buy something, you sell it to them. Producers determine how to produce it based on looking for profit. They want to lower the cost as fast as possible. And then when you decide the price, will determine how many people will buy it, or who gonna buy it based on the price, based on how much income you have. So no government involvement whatsoever. That's called free market. Free market system. The price determines everything, and like the price is like an invisible hand that organizes all the system. Nobody is getting involved in this thing. So if here's what happened in free market. If you have like a product that people make so much profit on it, you have more people want to produce it. That's create competition and lower the price and give people more choices. That's how the market is organized. The profit determines who is going to produce it. The moment you make profit in a product, more companies will produce it. That's create choices for people, give people choice. See, that's how it works. So remember, I would just go again and summarize all this stuff. We have an economic problem, which is unlimited resources. Because of this, people have to make choices, have to make decisions to select what is the best option for them. And to answer these questions, we have three important questions. And to answer this economic problem, we have to answer these three important questions: what to produce, how to produce it, for whom to produce it. And the way we answer these three questions determines our economic system. The economic system is the organized way to answer these three questions. And there are two ways you can do it. Either you have one person or one entity, centralized command system, one in the top decide the answer for all this, or you can let the market work and answer all these three questions. So now the problem with free market, if you believe in free market, means you have right to sell anything you want. I don't want a government to tell me what to do. So that's where the issue comes in the free market. Can we sell our kidneys? We cannot do that. If you believe in free market, I am free. My body is free. I can do whatever I want. Now, remember when I say when you get to the point where your morals comes to play, are you willing to live in society where people can sell their organs or do some really bad jobs to survive? I'm not going to mention word, but you can see you don't want to live in society where people sell their body to survive. That's not, because as a human being, you are against. I don't want to be there. I don't want to live in society where people had to struggle and do really bad stuff to survive. But if you are a free market believer, you can. If I want to smoke weed, I do it. I'm free. If I want to smoke, but the government now get involved because other reasons. The free market has limits. You can have free market in few things, but not in everything. So if you look at the society, will be like living in the jungle, the survivors of the fittest. So if you cannot make it, too bad for you. Okay, we don't want to live in that society. So many free markets people, let's say, the first thing to say, do you believe in the free market? Means you have to let people do whatever they want. Are you willing to live in society where people are dying sick in the front of your house? Or you can go like you're enjoying your life and you see people sleeping in the street, a lot of them. That's a free market. But some people say, no, we cannot do that. So now we have what is called the mixed system. The mixed system is that you have both of them. You have free market for a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, you want to buy milk, go buy milk. Nobody will tell you what milk you buy. But you want to buy a car, you can buy a car. But you have to pay taxes because you are making you pollute the air. Somebody has to clean the air. So that's why we have a government organizing all this clean energy and all that stuff. We want to have a clean environment. Well, who's going to take care of that? So we need another element instead of just having buyers and sellers versus sellers in the market. We need another organization. We're going toward that. You remember the general will. So everybody's looking for their self-interest. You're looking for your self-interest. The company is looking for their self-interest. Well, who's going to look for the society as a whole? We have to have this authority, which is called the general will, that will protect the will of the society as a whole. Maybe your interest is not in the interest of the society. So you cannot produce cars, for example, that pollute everywhere. You cannot go build a plant that pollute, like you live in a neighborhood where you have a river, like what happens in Hudson River in the old days with GM. Because the government was not involved, GM were dumping their waste in Hudson River. Now I need government to regulate all that stuff. So, for example, cigarettes is a good example. Or you smoke cigarettes, you are free, but you get sick. Who's going to, you have to end up paying for him because he is sick and he has a cancer. Education, for example, who's going to offer education for lower income people? If you don't have money, you don't go to school, you don't have a good education, you may end up being a criminal or something like that. That's why we want the government to offer free education to people, because it's very good for society as a whole. Okay, so that's when we have a what is called a mixed system. You will have a government involvement gives you some limits. You cannot just produce whatever you want. You cannot, no, we have a like APA, for example, that's like regulates environment. You cannot produce cars that has this amount of pollution and stuff like that. Okay, so and then how to produce it, you have to protect the workers. You cannot just abuse. You cannot just go profit and make a mess, abusing people and producing whatever you want, and or you can sell fake products or something like that. The government to protect consumers. Whatever you advertise, it has to be right. And sometimes people cannot afford to buy the product. If it's, we have to see if it's a luxury product or necessity product. If you cannot find, that's why you have food stamps, for example. If you cannot buy, I'm not going to help you to buy a boat, but if you need food, society has to, society as a whole, based on moral values, we cannot have people who are hungry. So that's where we will have a mixed economy. The problem is that the mixed is degrees. There are sometimes the level of government involvement differ from one country to another. Most of the countries in today's, most in the world today are mixed economy. There is no country that you don't have a government involvement with some market freedom. Market is good, gives you choices, create competition, and the market create competitions means you have better products. You can see like just how the competition makes our product better. For example, TV in the old days is not the same as TV today. Innovation phones, for example, are getting better, but also we need the government to clean our streets, to keep our environment clear, and all that stuff. Okay, so that's good. So I have a little bit of time. Don't get tired, guys. We're almost there. So now we're going to talk about assumptions. What is an assumption? You cannot start analysis without having some assumptions. Why we have assumptions? Just to simplify things. I cannot study everything at the same time. I have to start from some points, which given, it's called a set of circumstances. For something to work, I have to make some assumption. In economics, we have models, we have theories. It's based, I have to assume something so you can start my analysis. Means if my assumptions are wrong, my analysis is wrong. In economics, because we have so much things going on. Why? Because the economics as a study, it's called social science. It's a very complex problem. You are studying human nature and a lot of things involved in human nature. Okay, so we have to make some assumptions. It's not like exact science. You cannot take humans and put them in the lab and find out the result. You cannot do that. So we have to assume some things so that our model will work. Okay, so it's a given. We are assuming something. So I'm giving you an example so to understand. So some people believe that God exists. Some people don't. You cannot say to me, I believe in God. You say, no, you have to prove it. I know, it's my assumption. I'm just believe. That's a belief. I'm not going to prove you anything. Everything I do is controlled by this assumption. My behavior is always thinking that God exists. If you think that God does not exist, and your behavior will be different. We cannot say, well, your assumption is wrong or your assumption is right. There is no way I can prove it. I'm just if you agree with me in my assumptions, we end up in the same conclusion. If we disagree, we will end up in a different position. That's why economists disagree most of the time, because they're starting from different point. If we're starting from different points. We make assumptions. They say, if this assumption is correct, this is where I'm going. So when I teach class live, I will ask people, for example, how long will it take you from here to New York, from Boston to New York? Each one, at least, I will have 4 different answers. Some people say 4 hours. Some people say 3 hours and a half. Some people say 6 hours. Some people say 7 hours, and so on and so forth. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? There is no right or wrong answer. It's just each one of them is starting from different assumptions. So this one, for example, you have to make, when I say you're going from Boston to New York City, you have to make a lot of assumptions to calculate how much will take you to go from there. So first you have to go speed. How fast you're gonna go. This person has a number, this person has a number, this person has a number, this person has a number. Weather. How is the weather? Is it sunny or is it raining, snowing? That's another assumption. 3, traffic. What assumptions you make about? You cannot answer these questions without going through. You might think you didn't think about it. No, you really unconsciously thinking about how fast you can go, how the weather will be, and the traffic will be. You change one of these assumptions, you come up with different outcomes. Okay. So if it's here, like say we have 240 miles from Boston to New York, and then you're assuming you're driving with 60 miles an hour, that's 4 hours on average. Or somebody says, no, I'm going to drive at 80, that's 3 hours. It's not wrong or right, it's just because of the speed. But the problem here in economics, so here's where I want you to think. Sometime you can say, okay, this assumption is reasonable. If I say I'm going to drive 60 or 80 miles an hour, it's a reasonable assumption. But imagine that I have a car that only drives, the highest speed you can have in my car is 60 miles an hour. And then I'm saying I'm going to go at 80 miles an hour. Well, your car does not run 80, it runs only 60. This assumption is wrong. So that's why when you're trying to understand some economic analysis, you look at their assumption. This is where people like when I was talking about traditional economics versus non-traditional economics, the disagreement is in assumptions. We're going to talk about them and see where people disagree. Can we make this assumption or not? So for traditional economics to work, we have to make some assumptions about people. Okay? So the one thing, this is where all this stuff started. Remember, it's Adam Smith, the father of traditional economics, wrote a book in 1776. It's called Wealth of Nations. The first things he said, this is the assumption that he made when he's doing his analysis. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. When you go to buy something in the store from butcher or from brewer or from anybody, it's not because he likes you. The reason he's doing this is because he has something to gain. So what does that mean? According to his the assumption is that human beings are selfish. Every decisions we make is not because we are good. It's not because of benevolence. It's not because of we are kind or you like to do good things. Like politicians do this all the time. I'm trying to serve you. Adam Smith says, no, everybody does something because it has something to gain. Show me what you're gaining from all this stuff. So every day, anytime you're trying to analyze people's behavior, you ask yourself what this person has to gain from this. And it's called self-interest. We assume, so our free market model to work, we're assuming that people are self-interest. They are looking all the time for something to gain. That's a first assumption you have to make. If you're reading, even if it does not say in economic analysis, everybody that talks about free market, we are assuming that companies are motivated by self-interest, means to make profit. You are motivated by self-interest. You are trying to get as cheaper as possible a product, so it makes you happy. So that's the assumptions we make. Also, we have to assume that people are rational. So we have rational assumptions, we have self-interest assumptions, and we have response to incentive assumptions. Anytime you talk about economics, you keep in mind about these three assumptions. Rationality assumptions, what does that mean? You will not do something that lets you worse off. If I give you two options, I can say, I give you option A and B. I can say you will select the best option. Anybody in the world, as humans, if you give them option A and B, you can make a decision that he will select the best option. I don't know you guys. This is my first class. I can make this prediction. If I asked any one of you, should you get $10 or $20? Which one you will select? Not $10, because I know you are a rational person. You know, because if you selected $10, you are making yourself worse off. I assume that you're a rational person, you will select $20. Is it wrong assumption? No, it's correct assumption. Everybody, I will give you two options. If I know which one is better, I will assume that you will select the best option. The problem, I don't know which one is better for you. Sometimes I give you apple and orange. Which one you're going to select? I don't know which one your preference. That's the problem with all this stuff. You're assuming people are rational, but sometimes it's very hard to define rationality assumption. What does that mean? Self-interest, I do something, I have something to gain. If I want to motivate people to do something, I have to show them they have something to gain. And also people respond to incentive. So remember, I can tell you this is like you do it in your life, and many times you think it's easy, but like you're driving and trying to switch lines, you have to do a lot of calculations in your mind. You're looking for your, can I make it or not? I'll be sure that I would not hurt anybody, will hurt in the process of this. So you have something to gain while you are switching the lines. Every time you do that, you are assuming all these three things. So it is very, very important. You do a lot of calculations. You go to the market, you do the same things. You have a lot of things in front of you. You have to select the one that are better for you because you are a rational person. You don't think, like we call it in economic, as if behavior. People, they don't do, you play. So for example, people say, do I do all these calculations in my head when I'm trying to make a decision? Yes, you do it according to this theory. So I don't have to know all this stuff. Say, do people know all this stuff? No. But the behavior reflected. So you play in the pool. You know what is the pool? It is like the game where you have balls here, and then you can hit them. Sometimes you have to calculate the angles to do the calculations like that. So to be good at this game, you have to know the little bit math. So you say this angle has to equal to this angle, and then to get here. But when you're playing the pool, you don't do math. You behave as if you know how math works. And the same things in economics. We behave as if we know already all this stuff. We know that we are rational. I'm not going to get to the red line, for example, and go. When you get to the red line, you assume rationality assumption that you will stop. I assume like you have the crossroad. There are people going this way, people going this way. If you see these people are ready to go, because you're assuming these people are rational, they want to go across the red line, red light. Sorry, because that's assumptions you make about these people. Many times you stop in the line, in the red light, and people start moving. You will start moving with them without looking into the light, because you're assuming people are moving because they are rational. They're not going to move if the red light is still on. If you do that, so many times you just people are moving, you move too. Say, oh, people are rational. That's what is. I behave as if I am rational and self-interested, and I will respond to incentive. So when you get to the car, you see how we apply this. You get to the car before you start your car. If you put your seat belt, the car starts like making noise. That's, they want you to put your seat belts. They know they have to teach you how to behave. They will give you a very annoying noise till you put the seat belts. You do it once, twice, then the behavior will become part of your thinking. You get in the car before you started, you put the seat belt, because you know if you don't do it, you will have this negative incentive. Okay, so that's a lot of businesses put in this in their business model. They always give this incentive to people. You buy one, get 50% off the second item. That's an incentive to buy two things instead of buying one. Okay, so that's responsive. So rational, anytime you make a decision, we are assuming that you're rational. You are selecting the maximum, the option that gives you the best outcome. Option A, B, you have to put them in order. Which one is better? You select the best option. That's how we behave every day in our life. Motivated by self-interest, people do things. If I want people to buy more stuff, I will lower the price. I have to. That's that because that's the self-interest. Nobody will do something because just the sake of doing it. Politicians, they try to convince you otherwise. They say, okay, I'm a patriot. I want to serve my country. No, you have something to gain. It could be money. It could be something else. But the reason you are involved is you have self-interest. Okay. So the question is this: all this is this assumptions are correct? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Is it really people are rational? 100%. Everything we do is a good thing. No, I think some economists disagree with this. Sometimes we do something that's irrational. And a good example is drink and driving. Everybody knows that drink and driving is a bad thing, and a lot of people do it. So where is the rationality assumption there? That's many things you do something like, yeah, it is not really good things, and then you do it. That's a good. I'm just telling you, smoking is a good example. You smoke, you know it causes cancer, and you still do it. What is the rationality assumptions? So the people who argue against traditional economics, you cannot. They say you cannot assume people 100% are rational. They do stupid things sometimes. Also, the problem also is that because you go to the market, it's very hard to assume rationality. You want to buy stuff, you have a lot of choices. That's the problem. Can you value each choice? You're like trying to buy a t-shirt or something, and you start looking at t-shirts, and you are tired. You are not thinking rationally. You just say, I'm going to pick one, I'm going to move on. You didn't look at your options. You didn't measure the value of each one of them. You just like, because of too much options, it gets hard for you to assess your options. Okay, so think about this. Every time you're trying to understand behavior, human behavior, look at the incentives. You think about people are self-interest. Every time some people behave certain ways, the only way you can understand that is look what motivates them to do that. Okay, the incentives. I'm going to. I see. We're going to stop. What's time? What time it is? Okay, I'm going to stop after this slide. So if you guys are tired, I'm going to stop right here. So just remember, incentives could be positive. It could be negative. Sometimes you can use a positive incentives, like a kid. If you do this, I will give you like an ice cream. I'll give you if you behave certain ways. But sometimes positive incentives will not work. Then you have to have a negative incentives. So a good example is jail. If you do something bad, you go to jail. I'm not going to give you money if you behave. I expect you to behave as a good citizen. I'm not going to give you money because you're a good citizen. But if you are not a good citizen, I will send you to jail. So that's a negative incentive. So if you don't do your homework, you're not going to watch TV. You watch TV, it's okay because you do your homework. But if you don't do it, I'm not going. So it does not have to be positive incentives. If the positive incentive does not work, you have to have negative incentives. So now healthcare industry, they do this a lot. Say if you buy health insurance, they will say, okay, if you subscribe in a gym and you go to the gym, we lower your premium. Why? They think if you go to the gym, you will be healthy and you will not be sick. They will not pay for your care. So that's where you can incentivize people to do certain to behave certain ways. Okay, so guys, I'm going to stop right here for now. Please finish because next class I'm not going to slow. I will go fast. If you can just go quickly review the chapters, so we can move on in next chapter 1 or chapter 2 next class. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions before I end the lecture.